When I moved to Fort Wayne, I told myself it was a fresh start. No baggage, no lingering arguments, no walking past places heavy with memory. I'd spent the last 5 years in Chicago trying to make a life with someone who was never fully with me. After things finally fell apart, and I mean really fell apart, not just fights but moments that made me afraid to sleep in the same room, I packed up what I could, left the apartment keys on the counter, and drove east without a plan besides surviving. Fort Wayne wasn't where I'd imagined landing, but the school had an opening mid-year, the rent was manageable, and the air felt calmer than the chaos I left behind. My new apartment was a second-story walk-up near Coldwater Road. Small, dated, but clean. Mostly quiet except for the occasional loud neighbor or rumbling trucks from the highway nearby. 3 weeks in, I was still adjusting. I knew maybe 2 coworkers by name and spent most evenings grading papers or scrolling through streaming menus without watching anything. I didn't mind the solitude, but I was still learning to trust it. Still jumping a little when the floor creaked the wrong way, or when a neighbor's footsteps passed too slow outside my door. That Tuesday, I left work around 5:15. It had been snowing off and on all day, nothing serious, just those light flakes that melt as soon as they hit the ground. Still, the cold was sharp, the sky already dimming by the time I pulled into the Target on Coldwater. I needed a new humidifier. My apartment had that dry, electric heat that made my skin itch and my throat sore by morning. I also needed something nice to wear to the upcoming staff dinner. Nothing fancy, just presentable. The store was mostly empty when I walked in. I remember the hush of it. Not the eerie kind yet, just the kind you appreciate after 8 hours of middle school noise. I grabbed a red cart and headed toward Home Goods first, found a small humidifier on sale. Then I drifted into the women's section, lightly thumbing through blouses. I wasn't in a rush. That was part of the appeal of shopping on a weeknight in a town like this. That's when I saw him. He was standing by the winter coats, a man maybe in his late 40s, beard going gray, wearing a red puffer jacket and a beanie pulled low. He didn't seem to be shopping, just standing. His hands were deep in his coat pockets, and he had this look like he wasn't waiting, wasn't browsing, just observing. For a second I thought maybe he worked there, but there was no badge, no walkie-talkie. He didn't move when I looked at him. I shook it off. I've worked enough retail to know people sometimes just look awkward. I moved into a different section, picked out a few tops, and started mentally debating which I could wear with the shoes I already owned. A few minutes later, I saw him again, near the skincare aisle this time. Still not shopping, just present. Maybe he was following someone else. Maybe he was lost. I didn't jump to conclusions. But something about how still he stood, how his eyes never seemed to scan products, made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I kept going, found 4 blouses I liked, headed to the fitting room to try them on. The hallway was empty, no attendant, no signs, just open doors and bright lights. And that's when the night started to change. Absolutely. Here are the next 2 chapters of The Dressing Room Delay. Told in a grounded, realistic tone, continuing Danielle's experience as things start to escalate. The fitting room was quiet. Too quiet, really. I stood there for a moment holding the blouses, waiting for someone to check my items like they usually did at bigger stores. But no one was there. No attendant at the desk, no sign-in clipboard, no one even to wave me through. Just a half-lit hallway lined with open dressing room doors and a soft hum of overhead lights. I walked down the row, found an open stall and slipped inside. The walls were thin, standard, fake wood partitions with a plastic latch that never quite locked right. I hung the clothes and tried to shake off that strange sense of being watched. It wasn't full-on paranoia, not yet. Just that quiet crawl of discomfort, like when a commercial plays too long after a show has ended and something feels off. I tried on the first blouse, too tight. The second, better. A simple navy one I thought might work with a blazer I still hadn't unpacked. Then I slid on the third, tugged at the sleeves, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps, Soft, careful ones, not rushed. They stopped just outside my door. I froze, half-turned toward the mirror. My breath hitched. Then came the whisper, "Danielle." This one. My name. Clear as day. Spoken softly, like a secret passed between two people. I hadn't told anyone I was here. I hadn't run into a coworker, hadn't used a rewards card, hadn't even spoken to a cashier. There's a kind of fear that doesn't scream. It just freezes you solid. That's what happened then. My fingers went numb. I stood there, listening, barely breathing. Nothing. No knock. No second voice, just silence, and that humming light above me. I forced myself to move. I changed back into my clothes in record time and cracked open the door. The hallway was empty, but 2 doors down, a fitting room that had been open minutes ago was now shut. I stared at it. I didn't want to look inside. I also didn't want to walk past it. Instead, I backed out of the hallway entirely and headed back toward the main section. I found a young staff member, maybe 17, standing by the handbags. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "There was a guy. I think he followed me in. Do you guys have someone monitoring the fitting rooms?" She looked up from folding scarves, brows raised. "I don't think anyone's back there right now," she said. "Maybe someone's waiting on their girlfriend. People do that sometimes. You sure it wasn't just that?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to be that customer, the dramatic one. But I also didn't want to be the one who ignored her gut and ended up on the news. So I left. I didn't buy the blouses. I returned them to the rack outside and pushed my cart toward self-checkout, holding only the humidifier in my hands. That's when I saw him again. Red puffer jacket. Standing in electronics now, leaning against the end cap like he belonged there. He wasn't touching anything. Just watching. His eyes met mine. No smile. No shift in expression. Just direct, patient observation like he was cataloging something. I turned away fast, scanned the humidifier, and skipped the receipt. I wanted out. I moved quickly through the automatic doors into the cold night. Then I saw the car. A white sedan was parked directly beside mine, angled slightly, almost touching my driver's side door. No plates, no dealer tag, no stickers. Just a cold, dusty shell of a car that hadn't been there earlier. My stomach dropped. I slowed my pace instinctively, pretending to be checking my phone, then turned and made my way back toward the entrance of the store. Inside, I ducked to the side near the customer service counter, just out of the sensor range of the automatic doors. From there, I watched. About 30 seconds later, the red jacket man exited the store and walked straight to the passenger side of the white sedan. I felt a cold, mechanical sort of fear, the kind that slows time and sharpens everything around you. My breaths got shallow. I stepped forward quickly and caught the eye of the girl behind customer service. "Can I speak to a manager or security?" I asked. She blinked. "What's going on?" "I think I'm being followed. That man's outside near my car." He was near me inside the store too. She didn't ask for details, just picked up the phone and called someone. I stood there, arms crossed tight, pretending to be calm. I could still see the parking lot through the glass. The man leaned into the car for a few seconds, either talking to someone or grabbing something. Then he got in. Security showed up 10 minutes later. A tall man with a clipboard and a slight limp walked me to the exit. By then, the sedan was gone. Not just parked somewhere else. Gone. I told security everything. The dressing room, the whisper, the way he followed me through the aisles. He nodded, said they'd review the camera footage, and encouraged me to call the police if anything else happened. "Sometimes it's nothing," he said. "Sometimes people fixate. But you did the right thing." I thanked him. I didn't believe it was nothing. The rest of that night, I kept the blinds down. I didn't sleep. Every car passing outside made my heart stutter. I felt stupid for not calling someone right away. Stupid for not grabbing his picture, but mostly I felt exposed, like someone had marked me, and I didn't know why. 2 days passed. I thought it was over. Then I went to Walgreens. Certainly. The dressing room delay, along with a concise moral lesson at the end. The tone remains grounded, personal, and focused on a realistic, unsettling experience of modern-day threat and instinct. It was a Thursday evening, a couple of days after the Target incident. I hadn't told anyone back home about what happened. I didn't want to worry them. And besides, what was I even going to say? A man followed me around a store and might have known my name. It didn't feel like enough. Not enough for the cops. Not enough to justify the anxiety spiraling inside me. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. That red jacket. The way he stood too still. The way he stared too long. I kept replaying the whisper in my head. Danielle. This one. That voice wasn't loud. It wasn't menacing. But it was personal. It cut through me like it had known me. That night, I needed dish soap and tissues. I didn't want to go back to Target, obviously. So I drove to the Walgreens a couple miles from my place. A completely different neighborhood. Better lit. More people. I figured it'd be fine. The store was quiet but not empty. A couple moms with carts, an older man reading a greeting card too long. I made my way toward the household section, trying to shake the weird tension that had taken up permanent residence in my shoulders. And that's when I saw him. Not in the red jacket this time. This time he was wearing a green hoodie, hood pulled halfway up, and a pair of black-rimmed glasses. But I recognized him instantly. The shape of his face. The way he moved. Too slow. Too deliberate. He wasn't shopping. He stood near the pharmacy counter, just on the other side of the store, flipping through cold medicine boxes like he was reading them. But he wasn't. Every few seconds he would look over, not directly at me, but at the mirrored wall behind the aisle, catching my reflection, watching without watching. My mouth went dry. I didn't run, didn't scream. I casually turned and walked back toward the front of the store. I didn't want to be followed to my car. I didn't want to see what kind of vehicle he'd chosen this time. I approached the register where a young guy was restocking gum and mints. "Hey," I said quietly, "would you mind walking me to my car after this? Just in case?" He looked up, instantly alert. "Yeah, of course." I paid, bag in hand, and we walked out together. The man in the green hoodie didn't follow, but he watched us go. I sat in my car for 15 minutes after that, parked in a different lot, hands shaking. I called the police this time. The officer who met me that night was calm, respectful. She took my statement and asked all the right questions. What did he say? When did you first see him? How long had he been near you? I told her everything, and I made sure to mention the most important part, that he knew my name, that I hadn't spoken it aloud or swiped any ID in the store. "Could he have overheard you on the phone?" she asked. I wasn't on the phone. I hadn't spoken to anyone. She paused, wrote something down. "We'll request the security footage from Target." 3 days later, I got a call. The officer's voice was tense. "We reviewed the footage," she said. "He entered the store about 15 minutes after you. He didn't buy anything. He stayed a few feet behind you almost the entire time. Followed you into 3 separate aisles. And then he stood outside the fitting room for several minutes, holding his phone." My stomach flipped. Was he recording? We couldn't confirm from the angle, but that's our guess. They ran the footage through facial recognition, but there was no ID hit. The white sedan with no plates was still a dead end. There wasn't enough to charge him. He hadn't spoken to me directly on camera. He hadn't touched me. But they took the report seriously. "He's done this before," the officer said quietly. "We've had similar cases where women were followed, filmed, surveilled. We just don't always catch them in the act." I changed my locks, started checking my backseat every night. I bought pepper spray and carried it even to the mailbox. I haven't seen him since, but every time I step into a quiet store or hear a soft whisper in a place where there should be none, my body reacts before my brain does. He knew my name, and no one could explain how. Trust your instincts. They're not paranoia. They're your mind picking up what logic hasn't caught yet. In an age where privacy is thin and attention can turn predatory in an instant, awareness and action are your strongest defenses. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Speak up. Walk away. Ask for help. Your safety is worth more than your comfort. I never expected late-night retail to be thrilling. My name's Jenna M. I'm 22, juggling online college with part-time evening shifts at Target on Mack Road in Sacramento. I took those shifts to save rent money and keep my GPA afloat. Most nights were the same. Slow traffic, stock checks, the occasional price check or coupon dispute. Until one Thursday at exactly 9:10 p.m., everything changed. We had about 50 minutes until closing. I was wrapping up lane cleanup and nodding at the manager doing inventory. I tapped my scanner idly, glancing at a coworker across the aisle. Then he arrived. A man in his 40s with a wrinkled dress shirt tail tucked and untucked in parts, carrying only pretzels and a lavender-scented candle. Simple items, no coupons, no rush. He slid into my lane smoothly, like he'd been here before. I greeted him with my script. "Evening. Did you find everything okay?" He moved slower than necessary, gaze steady. Calm. Too calm. Our conversation began as routine until he leaned close and said, "You remind me of someone I used to know. That voice of yours. Sharp memory." My scanner beeped as I rang up the candle. I managed a polite laugh, handing him the receipt, but the moment stretched. His eyes lingered on me. "Do you always work this late?" he asked, still smiling. I replied, "It varies. This is one of my evening shifts." "Have a good night, sir." He accepted the bags, turning slowly as if studying me. He left, or so I thought. 20 minutes later, I spotted him standing halfway down the cleaning aisle, gazing in my direction. No cart, empty hands, just presence. Like a shadow with purpose. My pulse quickened. I told my supervisor, Harriet, but by the time she looked up, he'd slipped away. No one else noticed. She gave me a sympathetic smile. I nodded, insisting I was fine. But I wasn't. The shift dragged on. Every time a customer approached, I half hoped to see him walk in again, but feared it too. By the time I finished closing duties, the store was eerily quiet. I clocked out, grabbed my purse, stepped into the employee lot in the dim light. Most cameras were down, reported for repair. My car waited near the back, in the harsh shadow of a street lamp that flickered. I unlocked the door and froze. Under the windshield wiper lay a small white envelope. I fumbled to open it, and my heart tightened at the note inside. "Sorry, I forgot to ask your name. You looked rushed. Next time I'll wait." No signature. Just the chilling reminder that he'd known when I worked, he'd observed, he'd cared. I drove home in silence. Did not tell my roommate. Did not check locks on her warning. I kept my door locked all night. As I lay awake, I realized something. I'd crossed into someone else's story, someone who knew I existed. That carried a weight I didn't know how to measure. College started next morning. Online lectures I played through headphones, trying to focus. I tapped away at notes, but my mind kept returning to the note, to his calm smile, to the way he watched. I felt exposed, remembered the cameras down, the leering air around my shift. I texted the note to Harriet. She replied, "We're asking HR tour manager. You okay?" I said I was, but my voice wavered that evening when I showed up for shift again. My next shift started at 9:00 p.m. on Saturday. I intentionally asked to be on a different lane. "Just routine," I told the front with a half-truth. I kept my back to the wall, eyes scanning mirrors behind the register. Every bell, every customer felt like a risk. 30 minutes in, I caught a familiar face near guest services. Not greeted someone, not asking for help, just idle. He wore glasses now, no dress shirt, but the same shape, tall, quiet, observant. My scanner beeped. I faked a cough, summoned my manager, and whispered, "It's him," she replied. "Stay calm." I almost didn't, but I rang up transactions waiting. The man pretended to adjust a return slip he held. He glanced in my direction twice, and then left. No purchase either. That's when I broke. I sent the manager a text. That's the same man from the note. We watched security cameras together. He had taken no item, no ID, just hovered. Shoplift formalities didn't apply. By the end of my shift, I felt wrung out. I parked near the front, got in, locked doors, backed out slowly. I drove home in tears. Fear had replaced the usual easy fatigue. 2 days later, I received a Venmo request. Username unknown, but the memo caught me cold. For being sweet at checkout, Friday, 9:10 p.m. Exactly the time he had first approached. My hands shook. I hadn't told him my name. How'd he know? I refused the transfer, but the notification lingered. I screenshotted it, sent it to my roommate, who said, "Call someone. This isn't normal." I emailed HR again. They forwarded it to corporate security. They said they were checking cameras, logs, track of entry, customer patterns. They also told me not to worry and not to share too much with coworkers. Standard PR speak. But I didn't feel safe. I began wearing my college ID lanyard so my name showed visibly any time I stepped onto the sales floor. He didn't deserve to have it. I did. When I finished shift that night, I checked the mirror before mounting the step to the parking lot. Cameras near the employee lot still down. I got in my car, locked it, took a deep breath. I felt anger. I felt fear. That Sunday afternoon, my roommate got a random DM. The account had vanished from Venmo, but attached was a screenshot. Our target employee roster, complete with names, ID numbers, and shifts. My blood ran cold. He'd stolen it, or had an inside source. My shift times had been predictable. I was a schedule fixture. He had risked it all. Target's HR told me they were working on that leak, that they would disable access. But I was done. I couldn't step into that store without feeling followed, watched, hunted. Outside of work, my sleep unraveled. At night, I'd visualize the dark parking lot, the flickering street lamp, the man leaning in at lane 8 while I smiled and scanned. I couldn't shake him. I began changing my schedule, but anxiety and rent collided in my mind. I handed in my 2 weeks the next morning. I couldn't explain it beyond what I felt. I just don't feel safe. The assistant manager looked sympathetic. The district manager promised action. I didn't accept assurances. That day, I walked out of Target for the last time, hands shaking, voice flat. I moved home, lived with my parents until semester's end. No late shifts, no notes, no Venmo requests. I changed my social profiles, tightened privacy settings. I printed my roommate's police report and kept copies. I stayed alert in public places. I always scanned parking lots, outlined exits in stores, let coworkers hear me say, "Hey, I'll walk out with them." In time, I replaced fear with habits, safe habits. I still work part-time, but only with coworkers I trust during daytime. I don't leave my Venmo open to strangers. I check my name tag policy. Now I only display what's required. Trust your gut and protect your boundaries. It's easy to slip into politeness in retail, but remember, safe workplaces depend on respect, both sides. If someone knows more about you than they should, take action. Report it. Leave. You deserve safety more than service. It started like any other Thursday. I had dirt under my fingernails, a sunburn on the back of my neck, and sweat stains on the inside rim of my hoodie. That's just what gardening does to you, especially in Florida, especially in late summer. I wasn't complaining. After years of bouncing between jobs, assistant at a chiropractor's office, cashier at a natural foods co-op, I'd finally carved out something that was mine. Honey fern garden Coburn wasn't big, but it was real. I kept 3 regular clients in the neighborhood, grew my own herbs and veggies in the backyard, and sold flower bundles at the Port Orange Saturday market. I stopped by Target that afternoon to grab a few things: gloves, a new wide-brim hat, some organizing bins for the back shed, and a giant bag of potting soil that I probably should have picked up earlier in the week. I wasn't expecting anything eventful. I had earbuds in and a grocery list half finished in my head. That's when I saw him. He was standing at the end of the gardening aisle, pretending to look at fertilizers, but his eyes were on me. Mid-40s, maybe older. Gray around the temples, slight belly, clean flannel shirt tucked into faded jeans. Not a Target employee. No red shirt. No name badge. I glanced at him once and then again when I felt like he hadn't looked away. He caught my second glance and smiled. It wasn't creepy. Not yet. Just that easygoing southern politeness. "Sorry," he said, nodding toward my hoodie. "That your garden logo?" I looked down. The honey fern patch was stitched on the pocket. Old design. A little frayed. "Yeah," I said, pulling one earbud out. "It's my small business." "Oh yeah, I follow you," he said quickly. "Stuff. Peaceful. On Instagram, I think. Your lavender rose. Beautiful." I smiled a little, surprised but not suspicious. "Thanks. Appreciate it." We chatted for a bit. Harmless stuff at first. How hard it is to grow tomatoes this year. The heat wave making mulch smell like compost. Those tiny gnats that invade every time you water late in the afternoon. But then he started asking more specific questions. "You work over in Cypress Hills, right? That's what you posted about last week." Sometimes, yeah." "You deliver herbs too? Or just flowers?" "Mainly just bouquets. Mostly Saturdays at the market." He nodded like he was logging that away. "What hours do you usually do your yard work?" "I've got some beds that might need help. Big backyard. Not easy to keep up with." I felt a tiny flicker then. Something in the way he was asking. Not the words themselves, but the way he leaned in just a little too close. Like we were old friends. I gave him a polite answer, said I mostly worked mornings, and turned back to my cart. "Well, good to meet you," he said as I walked away. "Big fan." He gave a 2-fingered wave. I waved back without thinking. He wasn't there when I checked out. I forgot about him by the time I got home. At least I thought I had. The next day passed in a blur. It was one of those weirdly still Fridays. No wind, too much sun, and everything in the garden looked thirsty no matter how much I watered. I spent the morning trimming basil and moving some begonias into bigger pots. I had earbuds in again, this time playing a podcast while I worked. True crime, ironically. Something about boundaries and obsession. It didn't register then, not until later. Around 6:30, I was still out in the yard brushing dirt off my jeans and thinking about what to cook for dinner when I heard it. A car. Not fast, not loud, just a soft roll of tires against pavement. I looked up, expecting maybe a neighbor pulling into a driveway. It was him. Same man, same flannel shirt, same quiet expression. His car had stopped right in front of my house. He didn't get out, just sat there with one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting on the window, looking straight into my yard. At me. I froze. I was holding my clippers in one hand, the other still gloved. My heart started beating faster, and I couldn't figure out why. He wasn't doing anything illegal. He wasn't even technically on my property, but he was watching. He lifted his hand and waved. Just like at Target. No smile this time. I didn't wave back. I stood still, waiting for him to drive away. He didn't, not for a full minute. Then, without a word, he eased off the brake and slowly rolled down the street and out of sight. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the look on his face, not angry, not smiling, just blank, like I was some kind of screen and he was waiting for something to show up on it. I sat at my laptop around 11 p.m. and pulled up my honey fern Instagram, scrolled through a few dozen posts, lavender beds, mason jar bouquets, A photo of my setup at the market with my old blue umbrella. That's when I saw it. Under a photo from 3 weeks earlier, one of my backyard layout with my raised beds and hanging baskets, there was a comment. "Looks peaceful, can't wait to see it in person someday." My stomach dropped. I clicked his profile. No profile photo, no followers. Just a username made of random letters and numbers. Blocked. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept telling myself it was a coincidence. He probably lived nearby. Maybe he recognized my garden from social media and thought it was harmless to drive by. That's what I told myself. But the next morning, everything changed. I stepped outside around 7:30 with my coffee and saw it. A small ceramic garden gnome was sitting next to my mailbox. Bright blue hat, chipped nose, brand new, but weirdly heavy. I didn't put it there. I live alone. No roommates, no kids, no neighbors who joke around like that. And taped to its foot, folded like a fortune cookie strip, was a note. In blocky handwriting, "Don't stop growing." That was it. I didn't touch the gnome at first. I just stared at it, heart pounding in my chest, heat climbing my neck. My first instinct was to check the cameras. Only, there were none. I'd never had a reason to install them. I mean, it's just me, some plants, and the occasional Amazon package. I called the police. They came about 2 hours later. A young officer and a middle-aged one. They looked at the gnome, jotted down notes, asked if I had any surveillance, and when I said no, they shrugged a little. "It could be someone messing around," the older one said. "Didn't leave a threat. Could be a fan of your work." I didn't tell him where I lived, I snapped. No sign of forced entry, no property damage. Could have been a neighbor playing a prank. They didn't say it, but I could tell they thought I was overreacting. I wasn't hysterical, I wasn't crying. I was just calm and deeply unsettled. They offered to file a report and drive around the block, said I should consider putting up a camera, maybe even take a break from social media. I nodded. That afternoon, I deleted all my posts, took down my honey fern garden cover page, called my clients and said I'd be off the grid for a while. I still had work, but now I was watching every passing car, every delivery driver, every jogger, just in case. The new fence went up the next week. I hired a local crew, 6 feet tall, cedar planks, no gaps, latched gate. Not cheap, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in days: control, privacy. I tried to convince myself it was over. Maybe the gnome was some weird one-time stunt. Maybe blocking that account had scared him off. I even went back to Target once, though I walked faster and didn't make eye contact with anyone. For a while, things were quiet, but it changes you. I stopped wearing my honey fern hoodie in public. I removed the decals from my car. I changed my profile picture on my personal Facebook to something generic and private. Then one afternoon, I came home from a job and noticed footprints in the mulch. Not mine. Too wide, too deep. They led from the edge of the fence to the side gate and stopped. The latch was still shut. No sign of damage, but the prints were fresh. I didn't call the cops this time. I knew they wouldn't find anything. Instead, I put up motion lights, planted thorny bushes along the fence line, bought a camera and pointed it straight at the gate. I didn't sleep much that night either. That was 6 months ago. I haven't seen him since, but I still check every parked car that slows down near my yard. Still flinch when I hear gravel under tires. I reopen my garden page eventually. New name. No home photos, no location tags, no client mentions. My world shrank, but I'm still growing. I think about that man sometimes, not out of fear anymore, but as a reminder. He said he was a fan, but admiration, when it crosses a line, stops being flattering. It becomes possession, control, a one-sided connection that makes the air feel thick and wrong. The kind that turns a stranger into a threat, and a home into a place where you check the windows twice before you go to bed. Not all danger looks like danger at first. Sometimes it wears a smile, knows your name, follows your work. Boundaries matter, especially when others don't respect them. In a connected world, protecting your privacy isn't paranoia, it's self-preservation. People don't tell you how quiet it gets when you move back home at 36. Not the kind of quiet that soothes you, but the kind that gnaws at the edge of your brain, making you feel like every second you're not doing something productive is proof that you've failed. 3 months ago, I got laid off from a job I didn't love but had built my entire identity around. Graphic designer at a mid-sized marketing firm in downtown Chicago. One meeting, one budget cut, and I was back in Naperville sleeping in my childhood bedroom, staring at glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling I'd never peeled off. Sunday afternoons were the worst. Everyone had somewhere to be. Families at brunch, friends posting weekend getaways, co-workers I no longer had updating LinkedIn with fake cheer about new opportunities. So that Sunday, when the clouds were heavy and the house felt too still, I decided to go to Target. I didn't need much, just toothpaste. But I figured the noise, the normalcy, the people milling around might do me some good. It was busy, which helped. That weekend, crowd buzz, carts clacking, toddlers wailing near the toy aisle, teenagers with boba and earbuds laughing at things I couldn't hear. I wandered longer than I needed to. Electronics, home goods, a glance at books I wouldn't buy. I took my time. Nobody was waiting for me. Near the seasonal section, fake pumpkins, discounted fall wreaths, I felt a bump on my shoulder. An older woman, probably in her late 60s, short gray hair and pale pink sweater, stepped slightly in front of me. "Oh, good," she said softly. "You're right on time." I blinked. "Sorry?" She smiled in a way that made me instantly uncomfortable. Then she just walked away. I stood there a second too long, trying to figure out if I'd misheard her. Maybe she thought I was someone else. It happens. I shook it off. But 10 minutes later, near the home storage aisle, a man in cargo pants and a faded Cubs hat tapped me on the arm. "You work here, right?" She said, "You're the one helping us with the boxes." "What?" "The woman said you were the guy. You're helping us unload." "No, I don't work here," I said. He stared at me for a second, not confused, not angry, just processing. Then he nodded slowly. "Huh, okay," and walked off. That's when I felt it. The shift. Like the hum of the store around me had changed frequency. I started scanning faces. Nothing obvious. People shopping, kids grabbing candy, a teenager reading a price tag like it was written in code. But then I saw her again. The same woman. She was near the fitting rooms now, whispering to someone. Then she looked up, right at me. I walked straight to the front of the store and got in line. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. "Noah," a voice said, calm, male. "You're making this harder than it has to be." Then nothing. Click. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, as the line moved forward and I couldn't. My heart felt like it was thudding directly into my teeth. I hadn't told anyone my name that day. I hadn't talked to a soul except the cashier. I left the line, walked straight to the help desk and asked for security. I didn't want to explain everything, just wanted someone else to know that something felt off. The woman at the desk gave me that tight customer service smile and paged someone. A young guy in a red vest came over first. He was nice but didn't really understand what I was saying. When I told him about the call, he furrowed his brow. "Could have been a prank," he said. "Do you know the person?" "No, but they used my name, my first name. And they called me right after I saw this woman who... Look, I just want to talk to someone in security. Please." Eventually, a supervisor walked me toward the back, where the office was. I felt like I was making a scene, and I hated that. But the adrenaline was still coursing through me. I wasn't leaving until I figured out what that call meant. As we passed the security office, just a tiny glass-paneled room with a couple desks and monitors, I stopped short. There, on one of the desks in a stack of papers, was a printed photo. Grainy, black and white. But it was me. I could tell from the hoodie, the way I was holding my phone, even the angle of my arm. It looked like it had been taken from across the store, maybe by a phone camera. I pointed through the glass. That photo, that's me. Why is there a photo of me? The supervisor leaned in. That's not from our system. I backed up, pulse racing. I barely remember what I said after that. Something about not feeling safe. I think I asked them to walk me to the parking lot. I should have felt better once I was outside. But then I saw my car. Back left tire, flat. Not a slow leak. Slashed. Right next to it, a shopping cart shoved against the bumper like someone wanted to make sure I saw it. I didn't wait. I called my mom and had her come get me. 36 years old, holding a Target bag with toothpaste and deodorant, standing in the parking lot like a kid waiting for a ride home from middle school. I didn't go back to that store. Not ever. That night I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman's face. That weird smile. The tone of her voice when she said right on time. Like I was part of something I didn't sign up for. The next day, I started trying to figure it out. I checked my emails, texts, job applications, anything that might have connected me to a mailing list or a scam. Then I remembered the kiosk. 2 weeks ago, I'd gone to a job fair in Aurora. A desperate move, really. I handed out resumes to companies that didn't want printouts and talked to recruiters who didn't even write down my name. But I remembered one booth, a marketing sweepstakes thing. Sign up for a free iPad drawing. All they needed was a name, email, and phone number. I'd been tired. I'd filled it out without thinking. That was the link. It had to be. I changed my phone number the next day, switched my email, made all my social profiles private, deleted a bunch of old posts. I stopped going out, even to the grocery store. I ordered toothpaste online now. And for a few weeks, everything went quiet. I thought maybe that was it, until the burner account started messaging me. The first message came on a Wednesday morning. I was lying on the couch watching reruns, half asleep, when my phone buzzed. A new Instagram message request. The account had no followers, no posts, just the handle. Amy Imam, we found you again. The message said, we saw you again at the store today. You left early. You weren't supposed to. I hadn't been to Target in weeks. I hadn't left the house in 3 days. But I knew what they were doing. They wanted me to doubt myself. I blocked the account. 3 days later, a new one popped up. Why are you hiding? We miss you. You should come back. Every time I blocked them, a new one appeared. Different names, same tone, same phrases. I reported the accounts. Nothing happened. Instagram doesn't have a category for person might be psychologically stalking me through throwaway accounts. Eventually, I stopped reading them. I stopped opening the app. My phone became something I barely touched. And somehow that's what scared me the most. It's been almost a year now. I still live with my parents, though I've taken on a few freelance jobs. Nothing steady, nothing full-time. I don't go out much. I've got groceries on auto delivery, a new phone carrier, and a P.O. box under a different name. I keep my online presence locked down like a vault. But some nights, usually around the same time, 2:45 p.m., I still feel that chill crawl up the back of my neck. Like I'm late for something I never agreed to join. That Sunday in Target broke something in me I didn't know could be broken. Not trust in other people. Not really. It broke my sense of randomness. That belief we all carry that most people don't care about you, don't notice you, aren't watching you. But someone was watching me, and they wanted me to know it. Not every threat comes loudly. Some come disguised as fans, as chance encounters, as nothing at all, until it's too late. In an age of overexposure, where every form asks for your name and every app tracks your location, protecting your privacy isn't extreme. It's essential, because once your information is out there, you don't always get to choose who finds you or what they want. It started like any other Sunday. My name's Jason R., 29 years old, software engineer, currently single, and living alone in a quiet apartment complex off Bailey Cove Road in Huntsville, Alabama. I've always been a creature of habit, Brunch at home, a load or two of laundry, a bit of code review if I was feeling productive, and a late afternoon Target run to grab snacks for the week. Sundays were sacred, not because of church or family dinners, but because they were mine. Quiet, predictable. That particular Sunday, I remember it had been overcast all day, with a sticky kind of warmth in the air that felt more like late April than early March. I tossed a hoodie on over my tee, grabbed my keys, and drove the 10 minutes to the Target on Whitesburg. I'd been meaning to pick up dish soap, some random groceries, and a throw blanket I'd seen the week before. Charcoal gray, soft as hell. I figured it'd look good on my couch, add some warmth to my otherwise tech bro apartment. The store was calm, not empty, but not busy either. Just people like me coasting through their Sundays. I took my time, browsed a bit, grabbed a couple things I didn't need, coconut trail mix and some face wash I'd never heard of, and checked out at the self-service kiosk. The receipt spat out neatly. I nodded at the security guard on my way out, an older guy with a gentle, almost sleepy look in his eyes, and walked back to my car. I got home around 7:10, made myself a grilled cheese and tomato soup combo, and threw on a rerun of Brooklyn Nine-Nine for background noise. Nothing weird, nothing alarming, just another end to another week. It was around 8:20 when I crumpled the receipt to toss it and noticed something strange. There was a line item at the bottom that read, "Return label 17B." No barcode, no price, just the item description and the number. I didn't think much of it at first. Glitches happen. But when I turned toward the couch, something caught my eye. Stuck between the folds of the new throw blanket was a small, circular red sticker. Handwritten on it in black Sharpie was 17B. That was odd. I hadn't seen the sticker in the store. It wasn't on the blanket when I grabbed it, and I hadn't noticed anything off when I bagged my things. Still, I shrugged. Probably some employee error. They tag stuff all the time for inventory or returns, right? Then I made the mistake of opening Instagram. I'd posted a story earlier, just a casual cart shot with the caption, "Location." No face, just snacks, the blanket, and a bottle of soap. Impulse Target trip again. No. There was a reply waiting for me from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture, no followers, just a gray silhouette. "Looks better in your apartment now." The blanket, I mean. I stared at the screen for a few seconds too long. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step going down the stairs. I hadn't tagged my location. I hadn't shown my face. But someone, somehow, knew I had the blanket, and that it was now in my home. My first thought was that it had to be a friend messing with me. Someone saw the story and was trolling. But the account didn't follow me, and when I tapped on it, there was nothing. No posts, no bio, nothing at all. I sat there on the couch staring at the message like it would explain itself if I gave it enough time. Then my phone buzzed again. Another DM from the same blank account. "You left the patio light on." I stood up fast enough to make my knees lock. My living room opens onto a small balcony, second floor, with a little light that I usually leave on by habit. I turned to look. The sheer curtains were drawn but loose enough to let light peek through. If someone was across the lot or even in a car on the street, they could maybe see the light glowing. I yanked the curtains shut, locked the sliding door. Deadbolt clicked like thunder in the quiet. I pulled my phone up, hit block on the account, then toggled off my Bluetooth. I don't know why that part mattered to me then. It just felt like a step toward reclaiming control. But something didn't sit right. I turned back to the blanket, picked it up, and peeled off the red 17B sticker. Underneath it was another sticker, smaller, clear, and glossy. It wasn't a brand label. It was a beacon, a low-tech Bluetooth tracker, the kind you'd slap on luggage, pet collars, even kids' backpacks. Not Apple-level smart, just a cheap proximity pinging sticker. I knew enough about tech to know this one was meant to stay quiet. Barely any battery, barely any trace. My phone had been on all day. Location services on, Bluetooth active. It would have pinged just enough for someone to trace where I'd gone after leaving the store, which meant they hadn't just found my post. They'd followed me. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept the lights on, phone by my side. Every sound outside felt like a threat. Garbage truck, raccoons, neighbors on a smoke break. My body knew it wasn't right, even if my brain kept trying to rationalize it. By morning, the fear had calcified into paranoia. I didn't go to work. I filed a police report instead. The officer who met me was polite but distracted. His name was Decker, maybe early 40s, with tired eyes and a pen that clicked too much. I showed him the sticker, the messages, the receipt. He nodded along, asked all the expected questions. Did you interact with anyone unusual at the store? No. Did you notice anyone watching you? No. Nothing stood out. He took the sticker as evidence, bagged it, and told me a detective might follow up. He didn't sound confident. I wasn't either. Later that week, someone from the station called. They'd checked the footage from the target, but there wasn't anything useful. Just a sea of customers moving through aisles. One or two passed near me, but nothing flagged. No one obviously dropping anything into my cart or bag. They said it could have been someone brushing past without notice, or something even sneakier. The Instagram account was deleted. No recovery. No IP trace they could legally follow without more evidence. No crime technically committed beyond unauthorized tracking. Not enough to pursue. I tried to go back to normal. I really did. But every time I opened a shopping bag, I checked it twice. I deleted Bluetooth off my phone entirely. Started ordering everything online. Stopped posting anything personal. My world shrank to the size of my apartment, and even that didn't feel safe. 3 months later, I moved. New place, new locks, new routines. I didn't tell most friends I was moving until after I did it. I needed the distance, not just from whoever did it, but from the version of me that let it happen. I never figured out who they were, or why they chose me. Maybe it was random. Maybe I looked distracted. Or maybe they saw the blanket in my cart and thought it would be easy. The not knowing is what sticks with you. Not the messages, not the tracker, the ambiguity, the lingering what-ifs. What if I hadn't seen the sticker? What if I'd turned off Bluetooth a minute later? What if I'd walked back out to take a call? I started therapy a few weeks after I moved. I told the therapist everything. She said it made sense. Trauma doesn't always come from violence. Sometimes it comes from being seen in ways you didn't consent to. She was right. Now, even on good days, I check every item, every bag, every delivery. I know it sounds paranoid, but it's not about fear anymore. It's about awareness. We live in a world where watching someone has never been easier. We share, we post, we ping, and we assume the worst won't happen, until it does. The scariest part of all this wasn't that someone followed me home. It's that it could have started long before I noticed. It's the idea that, for all my logic, all my control, I didn't see it coming. And if it hadn't been for one weird sticker, I never would have. So, check your things. Trust your instincts. And for the love of God, turn off your Bluetooth when you're not using it. Be mindful of what you share, even casually. Not all threats are loud or violent. Some just stick quietly to the corner of your life, waiting to be noticed. Privacy is your responsibility. Protect it. I wasn't sure I was ready for the promotion. That's the part no one tells you. People congratulate you, your manager pats your back, and suddenly you're expected to act like you have authority, when really you're just figuring out how not to drown. I'd only been a team lead at Target for 3 weeks. My name's Paige, 26 years old, Crystal Lake local, and I've worked at this store since college. I used to be one of the fun floor associates, always quick with a joke or a dumb TikTok dance on slow days. But now I was the one dealing with shift swaps, overtime forms, complaints about hours, complaints about coworkers, and complaints about, well, everything else. That Saturday was the first time I truly felt like I was cracking. We were short 2 people. One of the newer hires no-showed. The fitting room looked like someone dumped a closet onto the floor, and the front lanes were so backed up we had guests abandoning carts. I spent the entire day bouncing between electronics, guest services, and team huddles. It was non-stop. I hadn't even had time to eat, and by the time 4 o'clock hit, I could feel my blood sugar dropping. So when I finally ducked into the break room, I was running on fumes. I just wanted 5 minutes and a granola bar. That's when I saw him, sitting at the middle table like he belonged there. Mid-30s, clean jeans, a navy jacket, short brown hair. He wasn't eating, just sitting calmly with his hands on the table like he was waiting for a meeting. Hey, I said, stopping short at the doorway. He looked up and smiled, not surprised, not nervous. Someone. They told me to meet here. Oh, sorry. I was just waiting on the break room door, is badge protected. He shouldn't have been there. No guests are ever supposed to be past that hallway. This is for staff only, I told him. Who are you meeting? He tilted his head like he was trying to remember. Orientation was here. Karen? Or Kendra, maybe? She said. I frowned. We don't have orientation today. What's your name? He stood casually and gave me that same easy smile. Huh. Must have been the wrong day then. Then he waved, real casual, and walked past me out the door before I could say anything else. I followed him as far as the hallway, but he turned down the back corridor and disappeared into the bustle of the store. I went straight to security. They checked the staff check-in list. No new hires scheduled, no orientations, no one by the names Karen or Kendra, and nobody was supposed to be in that room without a badge. It should have been the end of it. A mistake. A confused shopper. But something about him bothered me. The calmness. The way he didn't hesitate. Like he knew exactly where he was and wasn't worried about being caught. It stayed with me. The way some things do when your gut is trying to talk louder than your brain. And it was about to get worse. It was about 30 minutes later, right after I'd gotten back to the floor, when Delaney caught me by the registers. Hey, Paige, she said, biting her lip. You're gonna think I'm being weird, but did you see a guy in a jacket earlier? Brown hair, kind of serious looking? I nodded, immediately on alert. Why? I saw him hanging around the cleaning supplies aisle around 1, just kind of watching. Didn't have a cart, never picked anything up. I thought he was loss prevention at first, but he kept circling. Delaney had no idea what I just dealt with. My stomach sank. Did he talk to you? No, just made eye contact a couple times like he was waiting for someone. The same phrase he'd used with me. I rushed back to the break room with a pit forming in my gut. I checked the chairs, the trash, anything that might prove he was there for more than just waiting. And that's when I saw it. A torn piece of lined notebook paper, folded in half and shoved under the leg of the chair he'd been sitting in. I picked it up slowly, like it might burn. On the paper, written in thick, messy block letters, "Nice try. Not leaving without her." My mouth went dry. I read it 3 times before I really registered what it said. Her? Who was her? Was it a message to me? A threat? Suddenly, every team member felt like a target. Every woman on shift, every girl working a register. My heart started to pound. I walked it straight to security. They looked pale reading it. One of the guards, Ben, a guy I trusted, said, "We're pulling every camera we've got." The footage was chilling. He'd come in the front doors around 12:46 p.m., walked slow, didn't shop, didn't grab a cart. He loitered, first in the seasonal section, then toys, then home goods. At 1:08, he appeared near cleaning supplies. Delaney was stalking there. He didn't talk to her, but he circled, twice. At 3:52, a backroom employee exited the hallway door and, without meaning to, let it stay open just a second too long. The man followed casually, blending in like someone who belonged. He didn't run, didn't peek around, just walked down the hallway like he'd been there before. The camera caught him walking into the break room, sitting down. He stayed there 12 minutes, still waiting. At exactly 4:20, I walked in. He stood and walked out before I even processed what was happening. We checked footage from other days, weeks. Nothing. He hadn't been seen before, not once. Security called it in. Management got involved. Everyone started asking questions. But we had no name, no face recognition, nothing to go on but a scribbled note and a gut feeling that something wasn't right. Then Monday morning, I got a text from Delaney. "I don't think I can come in today. I think he followed me to the bus stop yesterday." I stared at my phone, heart thudding. I called her immediately. She didn't pick up. Texted me again a few minutes later. I didn't want to make a big deal, but he was there again, across the street. I left quick. I don't know what he wants. I went straight to our store manager. The police were called. A second report was filed. We printed the guy's image from the security footage and handed it to every employee with a warning. Do not approach. Report immediately. Lock the break room doors. Keep eyes open. Corporate sent down a regional manager. Cameras were upgraded. Staff protocols were re-reviewed. We all acted like we were in control again. But none of us really were, because he never came back. Not once. No follow-up visits, no other sightings. Just gone. Like he got what he needed. Or like he was waiting for us to let our guard down. Delaney eventually transferred to another store. I don't blame her. As for me, that promotion I worked so hard for, it never felt the same again. People think the scariest part of a job like mine is handling angry customers, or big inventory days, or making hard calls. It's not. The scariest part is the moments in between, when something isn't quite wrong, but your body knows better than your mind. When someone's face looks too calm, when a door closes too quietly, when you realize that being in charge doesn't mean you're safe. That guy sat in our break room for 12 minutes. He had to know where it was, had to know how to get in. And he didn't panic when I walked in. He left like it was part of the plan. That paper, not leaving without her. He never told us who he meant. And that, more than anything, is what stays with me. Not knowing, not having closure, just carrying that unease around like a shadow stitched to your back. I'm still at target, still leading. I've gotten tougher, sharper. But I never go into the break room without checking the lock first, because now I know the truth. Sometimes the danger isn't out there. It's already inside. Leadership doesn't mean you're invincible. It means you're responsible. For the people around you, for the spaces you protect. Trust your instincts even when they make you uncomfortable. And never ignore the quiet warning signs. They're trying to tell you something. I've always thought of Target as my safe place. Maybe that sounds dumb, but when you're a 17-year-old girl juggling AP classes, late-night homework, and a part-time job at an ice cream shop, safe spaces matter. My mom works full-time. My dad's out of state most weeks for his job, so I spend a lot of time managing myself. School, meals, errands, all of it. Target was 5 minutes from my bus stop. Bright lights, clean aisles, friendly cashiers. A place where I could run in, grab a few things, and feel like the world was still in order. That night was supposed to be quick. I needed a gift bag and wrapping paper for my best friend Lexi's birthday. Nothing fancy. Just a cute bag and maybe a roll of that sparkly gold stuff she likes. I remember it was a Friday. It was still warm even though it was mid-January. Weird California weather, like always. The sun had already dipped behind the hills, but the parking lot was full. The store buzzing with the usual after-work crowd. I didn't even take a cart. Just walked straight in with my tote bag and went toward the seasonal section. Everything was pink and red. Valentine's Day was coming. I found a pastel blue bag with tiny clouds and gold ribbon. Figured it was close enough to Lexi's vibe. That's when I noticed him. He was standing by the cosmetics. A man in a black hoodie, hood down, maybe late 20s or early 30s, kind of scruffy, holding his phone but not looking at it. He wasn't shopping, just standing there, pretending to look at mascara. I barely registered it at first, just one of those things you clock without thinking. But then I walked over to stationery, maybe 30 feet away, and somehow, 2 minutes later, he was there again. Standing near the journals, still holding the same phone, still not doing anything. It wasn't until the third department that it clicked. I'd gone over to snacks, thinking of grabbing Lexi her favorite sour gummies, and there he was, this time leaning against a shelf of trail mix, pretending to read a nutrition label. I didn't want to panic. I'd seen enough TikToks about girls being followed only to find out the guy was just shopping too. So I told myself, don't overreact. Still, I felt it. The tension in my spine. That weird heat behind your ears when something is off. I gripped the bag in my hand and decided to make one final stop. Self-checkout. It was the part I hated most. I always worried about looking awkward while scanning things. But that night, I wasn't thinking about appearances. I just wanted to get out. The self-checkout area was still busy. Families, couples, a mom with a screaming toddler. I found an open register and started scanning the few items I had. I barely noticed him come up behind me, until he picked the register right next to mine. You know that feeling when your stomach drops for no reason? Like your body knows something before your brain does? That's exactly what hit me. He didn't have a basket, no cart, no items in his hands. Just the same black hoodie, the same old phone, now held low, like he was texting or checking something. But I kept seeing him glance at my screen, watching what I was scanning. I tried to stay calm, scanned a candy bar just to buy time. My fingers shook as I tapped the touchscreen. A notification popped up. Unexpected item in bagging area. I sighed, irritated, and that's when I noticed he still hadn't scanned anything. Not a single beep. Not a single movement. Just standing there, watching. I looked toward the self-checkout attendant, a woman maybe in her 20s, long braids pulled into a bun. I recognized her from other visits, but I didn't know her name. I leaned in, pretending to adjust my bag, and whispered, "That guy's been following me. He's not checking anything out." Her eyes flicked up immediately. She didn't say a word, just gave me a subtle nod, then tapped her walkie. That's when he bolted. He didn't speak, didn't argue, didn't even look at me. He just turned on his heel and walked, fast, straight out the doors. It all happened in seconds. The attendant called over someone, a manager, I think, and they went into action fast. I was still at the machine, frozen in place, heart thudding in my chest, trying not to cry. "Do you want to stay here while we call someone?" the attendant asked. I nodded. They sat me on a bench near guest services while the security team pulled footage. A man in a red shirt with a clipboard came over and asked me to describe the guy. What he looked like, what aisle I'd seen him in. I gave the best details I could. Black hoodie, dark jeans, maybe 5'11", kind of thin, unshaven, pale skin. He nodded, scribbled something, then left to check the cameras. 10 minutes later, he came back. "He was in here for 45 minutes, he said. "Never touched a single item." My stomach turned. "He showed up in 5 departments you were in, always within a minute or two after you. Cosmetics, stationery, snacks, home goods, checkout. That was it. No confrontation, no threat, nothing happened. Technically, except it did. My mom picked me up from the store. I didn't say much in the car, just held onto my bag and stared out the window. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When we got home, I told her everything. She listened quietly, and then did what moms do, started making calls, first to the police, then to Target, then to the school. The police came by our house that night. A young officer named Ramirez took my statement. He was polite, but there wasn't much he could do. He didn't steal anything, didn't talk to you, didn't touch you. Technically, there's no crime, he said. But he followed me for almost an hour. I understand, Ramirez said, or harasses you. But California law doesn't let us pursue this unless he threatens. My mom was furious. So what, we wait until he actually does something? Ramirez looked tired. We flagged the footage. If he shows up again or tries to contact her, we can act. Until then, just be cautious. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those moments in the aisles, the way he stood too close, the silence, the way he held that phone like it was more than just a phone. The next morning, the store called back. They'd found something. There was an empty Target shopping bag tucked under a bench near the dressing rooms. Inside it, a change of clothes, jeans, t-shirt, sneakers, all generic brands. And a phone. Not the one he had at checkout. A second phone, a cheap prepaid model. No SIM card, no data, except for one thing. A single photo. Me, taken from behind, walking into the cosmetics section. I don't remember how I reacted. I think I went numb. I kept saying I was fine, but I wasn't. The thought that someone had taken my picture, planned something, maybe even waited for the right moment. It haunted me. The police opened a report, but they couldn't trace the phone. And without an ID, they couldn't confirm who he was. The security footage helped them pull a still image of his face, and they flagged it in their internal system. But that was it. No arrest, no name, no follow-up. He disappeared. After that, everything changed. I stopped shopping alone. My mom gave me pepper spray and made me promise not to use earbuds in public spaces. I deleted a bunch of my social media accounts, made the rest private. I even changed my bus route. At school, I acted normal. Told Lexi the gift was in a different bag because the other one ripped. She never knew. I didn't want to ruin her birthday, but deep down, I was different. Because fear doesn't always show up loud or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet. It waits. It lingers. I still think about that man. What he wanted. What he was planning. If I hadn't noticed him, if Jasmine hadn't believed me, what would have happened? I'll never know. And maybe that's the scariest part. But here's what I learned. Trust your gut. Always. If something feels off, it probably is. You don't owe politeness to strangers who make you uncomfortable. You don't need proof to ask for help. You don't have to wait until something bad happens to act, because sometimes being safe means acting when it still feels small, when fear is just a whisper, and sometimes that whisper is the only warning you'll get. It was supposed to be just a quick Target run. I'd picked up my son Jameer that afternoon from my ex's place over in Randallstown. Mondays are part of our new custody schedule. It's still fresh, just a few months into this new chapter. Shared parenting, rotating weekends, trying to be present while holding down a part-time Lyft gig and finishing the rest of my degree online. Life's a juggle. But Jameer had asked, "Daddy, can we go to Target? I need a new backpack." He said it with that gap-toothed grin only 6-year-olds can pull off. I was tired, sure, but I couldn't say no. It wasn't just a backpack. It was a moment. Our moment. And I was trying to stack up as many of those as I could. We pulled into the Target on Reisterstown Road just after 7. The store was still buzzing from the dinner crowd, but not chaotic. I parked near the middle of the lot and we strolled in, Jameer bouncing beside me, talking non-stop about how he hoped they had Spider-Man or Sonic or anything cooler than dinosaurs. Inside, everything felt normal, comfortable, safe. We found exactly what he wanted. A Spider-Man backpack with glow-in-the-dark webbing, a pencil case shaped like a Pokeball, and folders in every color he could carry. He even grabbed a pair of clearance socks with Charizard on them, which I had to admit were kind of fire. We made our way to checkout. That's when I patted my pocket and felt nothing. Wallet gone. My heart dropped. Then I remembered. I'd left it in the cup holder of the car after pumping gas earlier. Classic Malik move. I told the cashier, "Can you hold these for just a sec?" I left my card in the car. She nodded, already moving our items behind the counter. I looked at Jameer. "Stay right here, okay? Over by the snack shelf. See that security guy? You stay where he can see you. I'll be right back." He nodded, serious as ever. I rushed out. That's when things went sideways. The parking lot was still well lit, busy enough that I didn't feel on edge. I was halfway to my car when I saw him. A man crouched near my rear tire, one knee down like he was tying a shoe. He stood up just as I got close. "You dropped your wallet earlier," he said, smiling. "Mind if I show you where?" His voice was calm, friendly even. But something about him felt off. Mid-30s maybe. Beanie pulled low, oversized jacket despite the warm evening. His hands were empty, no wallet in sight. And his eyes, they didn't match the smile. I stopped short. "Nah, man. I didn't drop anything." He held my stare for a second too long, then turned and walked away fast, heading toward a black Chevy Malibu idling 2 rows down. The engine was running. I didn't wait around to see what he'd do next. I popped open the car door, grabbed my wallet off the console, and jogged back inside. It wasn't until I hit the sliding doors that something hit me harder than anything else had. Jameer wasn't where I left him. My stomach dropped so fast it made me dizzy. I called his name once, too loud, too desperate. People turned. A young employee in a red vest came rushing over. "Is everything okay, sir?" "My son," I choked. I told him to wait. Little boy, red Spider-Man shirt, curly hair. He was standing by the snacks. "I just saw him," she said, eyes widening. "Restrooms." He was with a man. They were walking toward the I didn't even thank her. I ran. I sprinted through the home section like a madman, knocking into a display of plastic bins. Customers jumped out of my way. I didn't care. I just kept pushing forward, heart slamming in my ears. As I turned the corner past customer service and hit the hallway near the restrooms, I saw him. Jameer, standing there, alone, confused, small. He looked up, eyes wide. "Daddy?" I grabbed him into my chest, knees nearly giving out from the relief. "Are you okay? Did he touch you?" I asked, my voice shaking. Jameer pulled back just enough to whisper, "Didn't sound like your voice." "He said you told him to take me to the car. But that one sentence nearly broke me. Security was already on the way. The young cashier must have radioed them. 2 men in red polos with earpieces escorted us to the back office. They asked questions. I gave answers. Jameer clung to my hand the whole time. Then they pulled up the footage. It showed everything. The man from the lot walking casually into the store. No cart, no bags, no merchandise. He loitered around checkout, glanced at Jameer several times, then leaned down and spoke to him. You could see Jameer hesitate, glance toward the door, then slowly follow. But something must have clicked in his head. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe he remembered my voice. Maybe he just didn't like the man's tone. Because just before they reached the restroom hall, Jameer turned around and ran. And that saved him. The cops arrived 15 minutes later. They took the footage, asked more questions, jotted down notes. But without a license plate or a clearer image of the man's face, there wasn't much they could do in that moment. They did recognize the car, though. Black Chevy Malibu. Apparently, it had been seen in the parking lots of 2 other targets across Maryland in the last 3 months. Same pattern. Man loitering near the entrance. Approaches a child when the parent is distracted. Disappears before anyone can react. "He's slick," one of the officers said. "Knows exactly when to back off." They flagged the vehicle in their system, said they'd increase patrols, but that was all they could promise. Jameer sat on my lap the whole time. He didn't speak much, just curled into me like he hadn't in years. And I sat there thinking how close I came to losing him. Not from some loud, dramatic moment, not from violence, but from a quiet, calculated lie. We didn't finish shopping that night. I took Jameer home, microwaved some mac and cheese, and let him fall asleep next to me on the couch while cartoons played low on the TV. But I didn't sleep. I couldn't stop replaying the way that man smiled, the way he crouched, the way he said, "Dropped your wallet." I kept thinking about all the times I'd told Jameer to wait right here while I grabbed something. At gas stations, at stores, even at school drop-off lines. It only takes a second, one slip, one predator willing to look normal just long enough to earn a kid's trust. I know now trust isn't enough. Since that night, I haven't shopped alone with Jameer once. If I have to go out, I wait until my sister or a friend can come with me. I never ask him to wait here. He goes where I go, hand in hand. That run to Target was supposed to be about school supplies. Instead, it taught me a lesson I'll never forget. The real danger doesn't always come with a mask or a weapon. Sometimes it looks like a smile and sounds like a voice that almost, but not quite, sounds like yours. Always stay close to your children, especially in public places. Predators don't always come in force. They come in silence, in ordinary moments. A few seconds of awareness can make the difference between safety and a lifetime of regret. Listen to your instincts and teach your children to listen to theirs. When I tell people I'm a stay-at-home dad, I usually follow it with a little laugh. It's still unusual even here in Orlando. But for me, it just made sense. My wife's job got transferred across the state, and daycare costs around here are nearly as high as rent. So I decided to stay home with Hazel, our spirited 3-year-old, while my wife handles her project management position at a tech firm downtown. I'll be honest, I never expected just how rewarding and exhausting it could be. Most mornings start with crayon scribbles on copier paper and Dora on TV. We rotate simple routines, a stop at the park, lunch, nap, maybe a splash in the kiddie pool. I love it, even on the days I feel like I barely remember what sunlight feels like outside our tiny backyard. That Tuesday started just like any other. We woke early. Well, Hazel woke early. She clambered into bed with me around 6:30, clutching her half-eaten plush bunny. After breakfast and a disaster with spilled yogurt, she declared she needed a new box of wipes and diapers. My wife was out helping a coworker move, so it was up to me. I threw on joggers, coaxed Hazel into her stroller, and we hopped in the car for our 30-second commute to the Target down Colonial Drive. The store was calm, a quiet weekday morning, the kind of mid-morning lull that feels almost sleepy, even indoors under fluorescent lights. Hazel hummed a tune she'd made up, patting her bunny and occasionally pointing at cereal boxes with wide-eyed awe. We found the wipes, found the diapers, and I retrieved a sturdy, cheerful pink box of toddler socks that somehow made me smile. Hazel picked out a small dinosaur toy as a treat, and I let her hold it, telling her maybe for another time. It was moving into the toddler girls section, where I wanted to grab a couple more socks, that everything changed. The moment I stepped in, I could feel it, that strange hush in the air like someone turned down the volume on everyone else. I knelt to collect Hazel's dropped bunny, that bunny she first hugged the moment she woke up, and I felt it before I saw it, the stares. A woman about my age stood near the rack, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. Another woman, pushing a cart with her toddler, leaned in close, glancing in our direction. I couldn't hear whispers, but I could read the glances. Suspicion, doubt, maybe even annoyance. I forced a smile at Hazel and said, "Come on, kiddo. We'll find a pair up here." "Here, Daddy," Hazel said, pointing at a pack of socks with mermaids. I grabbed it and stood up, trying to keep smiling. But suddenly I noticed a Target team member, a woman in a red polo, making her way through the neighboring aisle. She paused, watched me, then walked over. "Hi, sir," she said, voice polite but hesitant. "Can I help you find something?" I was taken aback. Yeah, these," I began, indicating the mermaid socks. "Socks for my daughter." "Just picking. I'm sorry," she said, inscription flickering in her eyes. "Someone might have been watching. It's just, we had a guest concern that my stomach sank." "Watching Hazel?" She leaned in and said, low voice, "Verify. But you're her father?" "Could I just ask you to wait with, I felt a flush, a wave of everything, anger, humiliation, helplessness. "Yes, I'm her dad. She's with me." She nodded, stepping back without quite looking away. Around us, the aisle had quieted more. A man by the kids' books turned and looked our way. A young mom at the cafe rigged her phone camera just in case. Hazel held my hand and plopped her bunny into my free arm. I felt hot all over, like every pair of eyes was burning through me. I nodded at the team member, forcing calm. She gave a quick, perfunctory, "Thank you, sir," then walked off to talk into her radio. I didn't wait with socks anymore. I picked them up, bundled Hazel's items in my arms, and moved straight to checkout. No browsing, no pause, no forgiveness. Behind us, I heard a brief rustle, maybe another whisper. I felt a weight, my daughter's innocence, my own dignity, lifted painfully from me. Then we were at the register, swiped my card, and left. Outside, I buckled Hazel in. She looked at me, eyes big and expectant. "Daddy," she said softly. Was we in trouble? I paused, searching her face. "No, baby," I said in a soft voice. "We're just going home." As the sliding doors shut, I realized how different things felt now. On that quiet Tuesday morning trip for diapers and wipes, I had become, in someone else's eyes, a stranger to be feared. And even though nothing more happened, I understood something powerful. Sometimes appearances are enough to change everything. We didn't talk much on the drive home. Hazel sang quietly in the back seat, holding her new socks and the plush dinosaur I caved and let her keep. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I needed to. My head was spinning, not with anger exactly, but something more corrosive. Shame, frustration, a deep, gnawing sense of being misunderstood in a way that stuck under my skin. I kept replaying the moment in my head. The team member's hesitant voice. The man walking closer from the cafe like he was waiting for something to happen. The woman whispering into her phone. The whole thing lasted maybe 5 minutes, but it felt like an hour. By the time we got home, Hazel had dozed off in her car seat. I carried her inside, laid her gently on the couch, and just stood there in the silence of our living room. Toys were scattered across the rug. The scent of peanut butter lingered from lunch. Everything felt like a movie paused in the middle of a scene. I finally sat down and texted my wife. Me, something weird happened at Target. Not sure how to explain it. Her, what do you mean? You okay? I typed, deleted, retyped. Me, someone thought I was following kids. Security asked if Hazel was mine. She didn't respond right away. I could see the 3 little dots appear and disappear a few times. Then, her. What the hell? Are you serious? Her. Were they rude? What happened? I called her. I needed her voice. I needed someone who knew me, knew us, knew Hazel, to hear how messed up it was. I told her everything. The stares, the way that Target worker approached, the implication. There was silence on the line, then, "Babe, that's not okay. That's really not okay." She sounded angry, not just for me, but for Hazel too. We both agreed not to go back there again. That night I stayed up after Hazel went to bed. I kept pacing, kept running the situation over and over in my mind. I started questioning everything. Was I standing too close to someone's kid? Did I linger too long in that aisle? Was it the stroller? My unshaved face? And then I felt it again, that sharp pang in my chest. I hadn't done anything wrong. I had just been a dad in the wrong aisle. 2 days later, I tried again. Not with Target. I meant mentally. I tried to reset. Hazel needed more applesauce pouches and those yogurt melts she liked, so we went to a Publix instead. Different store, different vibe. It should have been fine. But it wasn't. Every time I walked down an aisle with a mom and her kid already in it, I hesitated. I told myself I was being paranoid, but my body didn't listen. My stomach clenched. I'd find another aisle or fake like I forgot something. At one point, Hazel saw a balloon rack and sprinted toward it with her squeaky shoes. A woman nearby looked up fast, startled, like she thought Hazel was running from me. I rushed to scoop her up and said, probably louder than I needed to, "Hazel, sweetheart, stay close to Daddy." The woman gave me a small smile, then looked away. I couldn't read it. Was it relief or suspicion? I didn't even finish shopping. I picked up 3 things, left half the list behind, and hurried us back to the car. Hazel was confused. "But Daddy," she said, "we forgot juice." "We'll come back another time," I mumbled, already buckling her in. "Mommy. Next time, maybe with..." She just nodded. She's used to last-minute changes. I hate that she has to be. That night, after bedtime, I poured myself a beer and sat on the back patio with the monitor on the table. My wife joined me after finishing up some work emails. I told her how I couldn't shake it, how I now doubted every move I made in public, like people were waiting for me to prove their worst assumptions. She took my hand and said, "You're a good dad. You're the best dad. That one moment doesn't define who you are or how people see you." "I know," I said, but I didn't believe it yet. I spent the next few days avoiding stores altogether. I ordered groceries online. I stayed off social media. I needed space. I needed the noise to quiet down. But Hazel kept growing, kept needing socks and applesauce and new little things, and I couldn't avoid the world forever. The question was, would I ever feel normal in it again? It took me a full week to go back out with Hazel to a store. It wasn't even that I was afraid something bad would happen again. There was just this tension in my chest I couldn't explain. Like every aisle, every public interaction had become a spotlight. I kept thinking, what if someone else sees me with her and assumes the worst? What if Hazel trips and cries and someone thinks I hurt her? What if I sneeze too loud and somebody calls security again? But kids don't slow down just because you're anxious. Hazel outgrew 2 pairs of shoes that week, so on Saturday morning, my wife suggested we all go shopping together. "Let's go as a family," she said gently. "You shouldn't have to feel like you're only safe when I'm next to you." We chose a different Target, one across town, closer to Winter Park. Bigger, newer, and far enough from the last one that I hoped no one would look twice. Hazel was buzzing with energy. She had made a shopping list by scribbling circles onto a piece of construction paper and insisted on pushing the cart herself. As we walked in, something shifted inside me. Not everything, but enough to breathe deeper. I had backup. Someone else to vouch for my presence in that space. We headed straight for the kids' shoes. I let Hazel pick between light-up sneakers with dinosaurs or glittery ones with stars. She wanted both. We compromised on dinosaurs and socks with sparkles. While my wife checked sizes, I noticed a woman nearby watching us. She wasn't glaring, more like observing with a soft curiosity. Maybe I just imagined it, but this time it didn't feel like judgment, more like recognition. I offered her a polite nod. She nodded back. Simple. Normal. We made it through checkout without a second glance. No security, no whispers. Just a receipt and a cheerful "have a great day" from the cashier. It was so uneventful it felt surreal, like maybe I could reclaim this part of life again. Later, at home, Hazel wore her new shoes around the living room, like they were made of gold. She turned to me and grinned. "You like shopping now, Daddy?" I smiled, not ready to answer. But I knew I was getting closer. A few weeks passed. Life found its rhythm again. Hazel went back to singing made-up songs about cereal and dinosaurs. I went back to not questioning every glance in public. But it didn't go away completely. That experience, being wrongly suspected, being seen as dangerous just for existing with my own daughter, left something behind. Not bitterness exactly, more like a layer of caution. Something I didn't have before. One morning I bumped into another dad at the park. His daughter and Hazel took to each other immediately, tossing leaves and pretending to cook with twigs. We sat on the same bench. He looked about my age, maybe younger, dark circles under his eyes, just like mine. "You from around here?" he asked casually. "Just moved a few months ago," I said, figuring it out as I go. He nodded, exhaling like he knew that weight. "Same." There was a pause before I decided to share the Target story. I left out the name of the store but not the details. As I talked, he didn't look surprised. His face didn't twist with disbelief. When I finished, he just said, "Yeah, that happens more than people think." We sat in silence for a minute while our daughters chased each other around a tree. "I've started keeping copies of my daughter's birth certificate in my glove box," he added, "just in case." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at that. Maybe both. I walked away from that conversation feeling something I hadn't felt in a while. Seen. Not judged. Not questioned. Just seen. And it reminded me that behind all this, behind the fears and misunderstandings, there were other dads trying their best, like me, just doing their grocery runs, just raising kind little humans. That's the part that mattered. Hazel's still growing, still asking questions I don't always know how to answer. But I'm there. I'm present. And I won't let one incident, no matter how awful, rewrite the truth of who I am. We live in a world where fear is often faster than understanding, where appearances can cloud judgment and assumptions can turn ordinary moments into something painful. But behind every quick glance or whispered doubt, there are stories that deserve a second look. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is pause, just long enough to remember that not every stranger is a threat, and not every unfamiliar situation is dangerous. For the people judged unfairly, it's a reminder. You are not the problem. You are not alone. For the people watching from the outside, choose caution, yes, but never forget compassion. Because trust isn't built on silence or stares. It's built on understanding. Long before I had bills, job interviews, or sleepless nights worrying about gas prices, I was just a kid with grass-stained sneakers and an obsession with dinosaur school supplies. I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, and back in the summer of 2010 I was 8 years old and convinced nothing bad could ever happen in a place like Target. It felt safe, like school without the teachers, like home but with snacks and video games. My mom and I were there that Saturday afternoon to buy school supplies. I remember it clear as day. The sun outside was cooking everything in sight, and the parking lot shimmered like a pool of heat waves. The minute we stepped through those sliding doors, the cold blast of AC felt like stepping into heaven. My mom was a single parent, always busy but never too busy for me. She let me pick out a few things, within budget, crayons, folders, glue sticks, but I had my eye on something else. A 3-ring binder with a roaring T-Rex on the front. It cost a few bucks more than the plain blue one she handed me. "Please, Mom, just this one?" I remember holding it up like I was presenting some ancient treasure. She sighed and smiled a little. "Buy the cart, all right? We'll see. I just need to grab some laundry detergent." "Stay right," I nodded. I meant it too, I really did. But as she walked away, I spotted a sign pointing to the toy section. It was just a few steps down. The temptation was too much. In my 8-year-old brain, it was a quick detour. 5 minutes, tops. I could be back before she noticed. I wandered toward the toys, eyes wide as I passed Lego sets, action figures, and those cool Nerf guns I knew I wouldn't get but loved looking at anyway. I must have spent more time than I realized just drifting from one aisle to the next. Everything started to look a little too big, a little too unfamiliar. That's when it hit me. I had no idea where I was. I spun around, expecting to see my mom right behind me, maybe even frowning with that "I told you so" look. But she wasn't there. No one I recognized was. I was suddenly very small in a very big place. I clutched the T-Rex binder to my chest like it could protect me. My throat tightened, and I felt my eyes start to sting. That's when the man showed up. He seemed friendly enough at first. Balding head, maybe mid-40s. Red shirt like the Target employees wore. I clung to the idea that he was someone official, someone who could fix this. His voice was light, maybe too light. "You okay, little man?" he asked, bending down a bit like he was talking to a puppy. I nodded, not really trusting myself to speak. "Looking for your mom?" he asked. "Come on, I'll help you find her. I work here." I should have gone with him. And that's the terrifying part. I almost did. I took one step, maybe two, but something about the way he smiled didn't feel right. It was stretched too wide, too perfect, like someone pretending to be friendly because they read it in a book. I hesitated. My gut told me to wait. I didn't even know what I was waiting for, but something about him made my chest feel tight, like I'd swallowed a block of ice. Then another voice broke in, real and firm. "Hey, where are your parents, buddy?" A young Target employee, probably in his 20s, came around the corner holding a walkie-talkie. His eyes moved from me to the man in red. The man didn't say a word. He just straightened up, turned on his heel and walked away. Fast. In seconds, he was gone. The employee knelt down, eye level with me. "Are you okay? What's your name?" "Tommy," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He called for help on his radio, and within minutes I was being walked to the front of the store. My mom came around the corner, pale, eyes wide, like she'd just seen a ghost. She dropped the detergent she was carrying and ran to me, scooping me up into the kind of hug that makes your ribs ache. She was crying. I didn't know what to say. We sat in the manager's office for what felt like hours, though it was probably just 15 minutes. The security footage had already been pulled up. A small crowd of employees huddled around a monitor, whispering. I looked up at my mom. She wouldn't let go of my hand, and her lips were pressed tight. She didn't speak until one of the managers came in, a tall woman with a name tag that said Melissa and a clipboard in hand. "We reviewed the footage," she said, her tone clipped but calm. "We saw the man your son described. He wasn't one of ours. No badge, no radio. He didn't interact with any staff." "Did he take anything? Try anything?" my mom asked. "No. He left quickly once our team member approached. Slipped out through the garden section. Security followed him outside but couldn't find where he went." She looked at me then, her face softening. "You did the right thing, Tommy. You didn't go with him." I didn't feel brave. I felt like I'd done something wrong, like I should have stayed by the cart. My mom hugged me tighter and I could feel her heart pounding against my back. "Thank you," she whispered to the manager. "Just thank you for finding him." We left shortly after. I didn't ask about the dinosaur binder. I didn't ask for anything. For weeks after, my mom held my hand in every store, even when I was embarrassed. She would triple check that I was in her line of sight. It wasn't just about me wandering off anymore. It was about trust, shaken. I overheard her one night talking to my aunt on the phone. I was supposed to be asleep, but I lay under the covers listening. "I was just gone for 2 minutes," she said. 2 minutes and he was almost gone. My aunt said something I couldn't hear, and then my mom added, "He looked like an employee. He waited for a kid who wandered. He knew what he was doing." I didn't sleep much that night. At school, we had a presentation not long after that from a police officer about stranger danger. I remember thinking how none of it covered what had happened to me. There were no warnings about fake uniforms. No one said that danger might smile or pretend to help. I stopped wandering after that. I never walked more than a step away from the cart. I didn't speak to strangers, even the ones who looked safe. 15 years later, I still think about that day. I'm 23 now, living on my own, working my way through college and still shopping at that same Target on Renaissance Parkway. It looks the same. Clean aisles, red carts, blinking signs. But I see it differently now. Sometimes I catch myself watching kids in the store. Not in a weird way, just aware. Aware of how easy it would be to lose someone in the shuffle. A few steps, a turn of a corner, and suddenly you're invisible. I've told this story a few times, to friends, to my girlfriend, once to a customer at work when she said her son had wandered off at Walmart. Most people think it's just creepy. Some don't believe it happened. But it did. That day taught me something I carry with me everywhere. Not every threat makes a scene. Sometimes it's quiet. It wears the right clothes. It says the right things. And if you're not paying attention, it slips away just as fast as it appeared. Trust your instincts. Whether you're a kid or a grown adult, when something feels off, it probably is. Danger doesn't always come with alarms or warnings. Sometimes it comes dressed like help. And the smallest choice, to stay put, to wait, to say no, can change everything. I wasn't supposed to be doing this forever. When I first took the security job at Target on Supermall Way in Auburn, I figured it'd be temporary, a bridge between losing the mall job and finding something more stable. But months turned into a year, and before I knew it, I was closing out weeknights Tuesday through Saturday like clockwork. Third shift, $3 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. The hours were long, but the building was clean, the people were easy to deal with, and for the most part, nothing weird ever happened. That's the thing about routine. You start believing it means safety. I had seen the bad stuff before. I worked mall security back in the late 2000s, during the holiday chaos, when teenage fights broke out over Jordans and desperate parents grabbed for the last Furby like it was food. I've broken up shoplifting rings, chased kids through food courts, and even tackled a guy who pulled a knife over a returned PlayStation. But at Target, it was nothing like that. Maybe a return gone wrong. Maybe a customer yelling at an underpaid cashier. But mostly, it was just fluorescent lights, red polos, and those damn walkie-talkies squawking about price checks. But then came the man in the green cap. The first time I saw him, I didn't think much of it. He walked in like anyone else. No fanfare, no bags, no basket. Mid-30s maybe, average height, slight build. Nothing memorable, which, in security, should be a red flag. The forgettable ones? They're the ones you watch. But I didn't. Not that night. He drifted through the store, no urgency in his steps. He lingered in toys for a bit, moved to women's activewear, then to books. Never picked up a thing. Never stopped long enough to seem suspicious, but too long to be just browsing. When I rolled the tapes that night, I caught myself wondering if I had just missed something. But what? He hadn't taken anything, hadn't talked to anyone, just floated. I didn't say anything to the manager, figured it was a one-off. I was wrong. He came back. 2 nights later. Same time, same green cap, and I started watching. There are 2 kinds of watchers in a store. There's us, security, and then there's them, the ones you eventually learn to spot. Green cap didn't browse. He observed. Quiet, intent. Every move felt timed, like he'd practiced it. I started tracking his pattern. He'd enter just after 8:30 p.m., drift toward the back end of the store, and loop around the same aisles. Toys, books, women's beauty, children's clothing. Never once stopped at electronics or groceries. Then came the first complaint. One of our floor associates flagged me after her shift, nervous, glancing over her shoulder. She said a woman in the shoe department had approached her looking pale, said she was being followed. When she turned down aisles, the man behind her did the same. No conversation, just movement. Quiet, deliberate. She tried faking a phone call, said she caught him watching her in the mirror display near cosmetics. Her description? Green cap, denim jacket, holding his phone like he was reading something, but the screen was off. I reviewed the footage. There he was, tailing the woman like a shadow. No cart, no items in hand. The only thing he touched the entire time was the edge of a shelf, brushing it with his fingers like he was tracing something invisible. I brought it to the manager. His response? You should have confronted him sooner. So I decided I would. Next time I'd be ready. It didn't take long. 2 nights later, like clockwork, Green Cap was back. I watched him on the monitors as he walked past the DVD display and into toys. He didn't follow anyone that night, didn't trail behind some unsuspecting woman or hover by the fitting rooms. He just stood in the toy aisle, still, focused on a shelf of plush animals. I left the booth and circled toward the back hallway, keeping him in my line of sight from a distance. After nearly 20 minutes of him standing there without touching a single thing, I finally approached. "Need help with something?" I asked. He turned to me slow, like he'd known I was coming the whole time. Gave a faint smile. Not unfriendly, just off. "No," he said. "I'm just remembering things." That sentence rattled around in my head like a marble in a jar. Remembering what? And why here? He didn't say another word, just nodded and walked off. Not toward the register, not toward the exit, just deeper into the store. I followed him on camera for the next hour. Nothing happened. He left at 9:52 p.m., hands in his pockets, empty-handed. Then came the pillow. After we closed, I did the usual rounds, bathrooms, exits, backstock areas. When I reached bedding, I noticed one of the display pillows was torn open. Not ripped by accident, but sliced neatly along the seam. I figured maybe a box cutter slipped during stocking, until I picked it up. Inside the stuffing was a photo. Black and white. A little girl. No older than 9. Hair in braids. A playground in the background. It was tucked deep inside, like someone had deliberately hidden it there. I brought it to the manager. He squinted at it and shrugged. Mixed in with the display. Probably someone's old picture got, but I'd seen that photo before. 2 nights earlier, a little girl had been in the store with her mom, kept dropping a juice box near the toy aisle. She'd had a necklace, one of those plastic lockets that snaps open. Inside was that same photo. I checked the cameras. That night, Green Cap had been in the bedding aisle for 7 minutes. Alone, arms folded, never bending down, never visibly holding anything. Police said they couldn't do anything. No weapon, no threat, just weird behavior. I started to feel like I was the only one who saw it for what it was, a pattern. Then I found the sticky note. It was taped inside the back hallway door, the one employees used to exit after closing. Small, yellow, standard sticky note, neat handwriting, 3 words. They always turn their backs too soon. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't just a message, it was a warning. I turned in my resignation the following week. They told me I was overreacting, that I was letting my old mall security instincts get the better of me. Said if he wasn't stealing or threatening anyone, there was nothing to worry about. But I knew better. I'd spent years watching people, the angry, the desperate, the confused. But Green Cap wasn't any of those things. He was patient. He wasn't trying to get in and out. He was waiting. For the right time, the right person. A moment when no one was watching. Now, years later, I still think about that photo. That girl. That note. Sometimes I wonder if he ever came back. If anyone else saw him. If someone did turn their back. I keep copies of the screenshots. His face, the pattern, the hours, just in case. Because if there's one thing I learned working nights, it's this. Monsters don't always show their teeth. Sometimes they stand quietly in aisles, waiting. Trust your observations even when others don't. Not every danger is loud. Some are subtle, patient, and well-practiced. The world teaches us to downplay what feels off. But instincts? They keep us safe. If something doesn't sit right, don't look away. Look closer, because sometimes seeing clearly is the only defense you have. I wasn't planning to leave the house that night. It had been a long shoot. Nothing glamorous, just a cold gray day photographing a local bakery's new spring menu. My fingers were still a little stiff from the cold, and the camera bag dug into my shoulder deeper than usual. All I wanted was to throw on sweatpants, maybe pour a glass of red, and binge something brainless on Netflix. But of course I had no almond milk, no paper towels, and I was pretty sure my bathroom soap dispenser was down to fumes. The Target up on Port Washington Road was only 10 minutes from my apartment, and if I was honest, I kind of liked going there when the weather was moody. Something about the white aisles and too clean lighting made me feel like things were in order. I threw on a hoodie, didn't even brush my hair, just clipped it up, and drove through a light snow that had started somewhere between dusk and sunset. Wisconsin in winter doesn't really know how to shut up with the snow. Target was quiet, not dead, just comfortably slow. I grabbed a red cart, turned left out of habit, and headed for the home goods section. There's something stupidly soothing about browsing throw pillows when your brain's been buzzing all day. That's where it happened. "Excuse me, are you always this good at picking throw pillows?" The voice came from behind me. I turned, ready to give a tight-lipped smile and a nod, but I stopped. He was tall, a little scruffy, wearing a denim jacket over a plain gray hoodie. There was something easy in his tone, like he'd made that same joke to 3 people before but somehow made it sound fresh each time. He grinned. "Sorry, just... that color combo is expert level. Impressed." I let out a laugh before I even decided to. Instincts. "Thanks," I said. "I guess I've got strong pillow." He smiled again. "Carter?" he offered casually. "I work over at Office Max, just killing time." That's all it was, a few minutes of chatting. He joked about pretending to hate home decor, asked if I was from Mannequin. I said, kind of. I'd moved there 3 years ago, and then we went our separate ways. I saw him again in the frozen section. He raised an eyebrow at my oat milk and asked, "Almond?" Brave choice. I rolled my eyes and smiled again. "No." At checkout, he waved as I walked by. Target more than I should admit. "Hey, maybe I'll see you around here again." "I'm in this," I said. "Maybe," and meant it. Because he was funny. Easygoing. And after a 6-month breakup that left me questioning every word I said to men, it felt good to laugh with someone again. I wasn't naive. I knew flirting in grocery stores wasn't always the setup to a fairy tale. But something about Carter felt harmless. Familiar even. Maybe too familiar. I didn't think anything of it when I saw him again. Not yet. It was 2 days later. I'd just gotten off a Zoom call with a client and realized I was completely out of toothpaste. I had 20 minutes before sundown, and Target felt easier than a Walgreens run. I bundled up again and went, half thinking I'd browse the new spring mugs or whatever nonsense was near the dollar section. I was 3 minutes in when I saw him. Health aisle, flipping through a box of vitamins, back turned. But I knew that denim jacket. He turned slightly, noticed me, smiled. "Hey, it's Pillow Girl." I laughed, again, too polite. "Hey, Carter, right?" "Guilty," he said, stepping aside so I could grab my toothpaste. "See? Told you I live here." I brushed it off. A coincidence. He said he worked nearby. Maybe he really was always here. Mannequin isn't New York City. We've got like 3 big stores and 2 decent coffee shops. It could happen, but it kept happening. Every time I went to Target, every time he was there. I didn't think too hard about it at first, but then it started to get weird. He never had a cart. He rarely picked anything up. And he always managed to be in the same aisle I ended up in, as if he knew where I was heading. One night I saw him near seasonal decor. I was there for toilet paper. The next time near pet supplies. I don't even own a pet. I started changing my routes inside the store, doubling back, skipping sections, cutting my trip short. Still, 5 minutes in, there he was. Same easy smile. Same, "what are the odds" and tone. But odds don't work like that. People don't work like that. So I decided to test it. I waited until nearly 10 p.m. The store closed at 10 raw. I got in my car at 9:42, parked in the farthest spot, and slipped inside like I was sneaking into a movie late. I didn't grab a cart. I wandered the first few aisles near the pharmacy, looked at Band-Aids I didn't need, counted minutes, and right on cue, he appeared, denim jacket, hands in pockets. "Late night snack run," he said with a grin. "You too?" "No," I said, flat. "Just needed something quick. I'm meeting someone." I didn't give him a chance to respond. I turned and walked away. That was the first time I felt my stomach turn. Not butterflies. A drop. A pit. Something wrong. I paid and left, walking quickly through a parking lot now dusted with fresh snow. When I got home, I showered and tried to shake it off. Maybe he really was just awkward. Maybe he thought we had a thing. Maybe I was overreacting. Then the Instagram notification came. A new follower. Username was random, something like N or Lightcatcher27. No profile picture. I clicked. It was following one account. Carter H. His profile private. I hadn't told him my last name. I hadn't told him I was a photographer. That was when it stopped being cute. I blocked him immediately. Heart racing. Sat there staring at the screen like it might blink back. I started tracing back everything I'd said in those short, casual chats. Had I mentioned a location, a job, anything specific? No. I was careful, always vague, always polite but guarded. But somehow he knew. I stopped going to Target, started shopping across town. I told myself it was just a guy who misread a vibe. But the text came a week later. From an unknown number. Hope you're doing okay. Still love your lighting work. Maybe we'll run into each other again. Target's not the same without you. I dropped my phone. My breath caught in my throat. I hadn't listed my number publicly anywhere. Not under my business name, not linked to social. He had to have dug for it. I reported the number, changed my privacy settings, switched to client emails only, and I stopped walking around Mannequin alone. I told a friend everything, made sure someone always knew when I was out. He never contacted me again, but he didn't have to. It's been over a year. I still haven't gone back to that Target. Even now, when I walk into any store alone, I find myself checking over my shoulder, watching reflections in freezer glass, listening for footsteps in quiet aisles. I've never seen Carter again, but the way he slipped into my routine without permission, that stuck with me. Because the scariest part wasn't the text or the Instagram or even seeing him late at night. The scariest part was how much I wanted to believe it was all normal. That someone noticing me, smiling at me, seeing me. It felt like something I'd been missing. I wanted it to be harmless. I wanted to trust a stranger just enough to feel like I could still be open. But I've learned that not everyone who smiles is safe. And not everyone who just happens to be nearby is really a coincidence. What feels like a connection might sometimes be a calculation. And in a world where we're all trying to find love, comfort, or even just a friendly face in a public place, it's okay to trust your gut, even if it makes you seem rude, even if it makes you walk away, because your safety matters more than someone else's impression of you. Trust yourself. You don't owe anyone your time just because they smiled. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said night shifts don't bother me. I used to love closing, the silence after the last customer left, the way the store lights buzzed quieter somehow. I liked folding clothes in the fitting room without anyone asking for sizes or unlocking dressing stalls. I liked organizing end caps and zoning shelves to mindless playlists on my earbuds. It was my quiet time, in a weird way. But that changed last winter. I was 24, juggling a part-time job at Target while finishing up my last semester at UWM. My major was communications, though I'd already started feeling the weight of it. Classes were exhausting, the job paid barely enough to cover rent, and I was working more hours than anyone else on my team just to keep my car running. That was the irony. My car had broken down the week before Christmas. Transmission failure. So for the last 2 weeks of December and all through January, I was on foot and buses. The Wauwatosa Target, the one I worked at, was fine during the day, but the bus stop was a problem. It wasn't right outside the store. You had to walk across Mayfair Road, past a dead patch of trees, to this old bench under a crooked streetlight. No shelter, no heat lamps, just metal and wind and the sound of cars passing. That night in February, it was 17 degrees. I remember that number because my phone had a weather alert warning about frostbite, but I needed the hours, and I wasn't about to complain. I clocked out at 10:17 p.m., zipped up my red coat, and walked out into the cold. My phone was at 4%, my earbuds had died halfway through cleaning the toy aisle, and the last bus for the night was due in 11 minutes. I crossed the parking lot. That's when I saw him. A man. Already sitting at the bench across the road. He looked like he belonged there and didn't. if that makes sense. Hoodie pulled low, duffel bag at his feet, sitting forward like he was waiting. But his posture was off, too still, like he wasn't cold, like he hadn't moved in a while. I paused at the curb, told myself I was overthinking it. I'd seen guys at that bench before, college students, night shift people, drifters. I crossed anyway. I sat at the far edge of the bench, 6 feet away. Close enough to catch the bus, far enough not to invite conversation. For a while, he didn't say a word. I remember counting breaths in my head to distract myself from how numb my legs felt. Then he spoke. "Rough shift?" His voice was soft, gravelly, the kind that made you think he was either tired or pretending to be. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound like I didn't want to talk. He nodded. Didn't look at me. Just said age. I always tell her not to work late. My daughter works over there too. She's about your... I glanced at him for the first time. I couldn't see his eyes, just a profile. Faint beard, cracked lips, heavy coat. There was a silence between us that felt longer than it was. Then he said it. "You ever feel like people just disappear after hours?" That's when the cold really set in. At first I didn't respond. I just stared at the pavement, hoping the bus would show early. But there was something in the way he said it. Soft, like he was talking to himself but still wanted me to hear. "Excuse me?" I asked, barely turning toward him. He didn't answer, just shifted his head slightly in my direction. Not a full turn, just enough to show part of a smile. No teeth, just lips curled like he was in on a joke I didn't get. I stood up. "I think I'll wait closer to the store," I muttered. Still no bus in sight. I turned and started walking, slow at first, but I picked up pace the second I heard the sound. Metal. A soft clink, like chain links sliding against each other. Coming from his bag, I turned my head just enough to catch him moving, unzipping the duffel, one hand reaching in. I saw something metallic, maybe tools, maybe worse. He wasn't in a rush, just moving deliberately. Calm. That was the part that made my stomach turn. He didn't look caught. He looked like he didn't care. I ran. Across the road, back into the parking lot, full sprint. I didn't stop until I reached the store doors, yanked them, realized they were already locked. I banged until I saw movement inside. It was Jason, one of the electronics guys. He opened the door halfway, alarmed. "You okay?" I nodded too quickly, out of breath. "Phone?" "There's a guy at the bus stop. Can I use the... He let me in." I called my friend Rachel, who lived 10 minutes away. My phone died halfway through the call, but I gave her the address. She said she was already on her way. I waited inside, shaking. Jason didn't ask questions. He just stood by the door until she arrived. By the time I looked out the glass again, the bench was empty. The next morning I felt ridiculous. I kept replaying it in my head, trying to tell myself I overreacted. Maybe the guy was harmless. Maybe he had tools because he was fixing something. Maybe he really did have a daughter who worked at Target. But the way he spoke, that strange question, the sound of metal, the duffel bag, and the way he disappeared. Rachel tried to brush it off. "Creepy dudes at bus stops are part of Milwaukee life," she said. But even she admitted something felt off when I told her about the chain sound. I didn't work again until Saturday. I debated calling out. I didn't. That night, one of the team leads, Nate, mentioned something weird. He said he'd been taking trash out back behind the store around 9:30 and thought he heard rustling near the fence line by the trees. When he shined his phone flashlight, nothing was there. He thought maybe a raccoon. I didn't say anything, just nodded and walked faster to the break room. A week later, someone else mentioned the bench. Amber, one of the newer hires, said she saw someone in the trees near the bench when she was leaving, not sitting, standing, watching. She called her boyfriend to pick her up, told management the next day. That's when they started talking about new lights for the parking lot. Management said it was for visibility, but we all knew why. I never worked a closing shift again. It wasn't a formal thing. I just started trading shifts, signing up for mornings, begging the schedule to work in my favor. After a while, they stopped putting me on past 8. The bench never left my mind. Sometimes when I left a shift early, I'd see someone sitting there again. Never the same guy. Sometimes a woman, sometimes empty. But that spot, just across the road, out of reach, it felt cursed. I stopped taking the bus entirely, scraped enough money together to fix my car by March. Even if it meant skipping groceries or selling old textbooks, it was worth it. What stuck with me most wasn't that the guy said something weird or that he had something in his bag. It was how he waited. He didn't follow me. He didn't chase me. He didn't yell. He just sat. Like he knew someone would show up eventually. Like the night was on his side. That kind of patience scares me more than anything. It's been nearly a year. I still work at Target. Not full-time anymore. Just weekends while I finish my graduate program. I park in the employee lot and only work shifts that end in daylight. Sometimes I think about that bench. Not often, but enough. Sometimes late at night, I'll be scrolling through Reddit or watching crime documentaries, and someone will talk about a case, about someone vanishing after their shift, about strange men and public places, and I'll feel that old cold return. People think danger announces itself, that it yells or jumps out or makes you scream. But sometimes it just sits, quietly, waiting across the road. Not all threats look like threats. Sometimes, danger wears a calm voice and carries a bag that never fully opens. Trust your gut. Don't wait to find out if you're right. And never apologize for walking away, even if someone says all the right things. Because feeling uneasy isn't being dramatic, it's being aware. And awareness might be the thing that saves you.